In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro called to consolidate the capacity of the government, strengthen the popular power, and prepare the population for a possible armed struggle amid Washington's aggressive actions against the sovereignty of the nation. In the United States, authorities released a video showing the alleged suspect in the murder of Charlie Kirk at an event on the campus of Utah Valley University. In France, the political party La France Insoumise gathers 104 signatures from parliament members for a motion to impeach President Emmanuel Macron. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Sophie Fernandez from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro declared that defensive measures are being taken in case the country suffers a military attack by the United States Empire, in a session that was held in honor of former Chilean President Salvador Allende. During the plenary session of the Extraordinary Congress of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and its youth, PSU-VP-PFCV, 2025, President Maduro assured that popular preparations is underway with the activation of the 47,000 communities to move from unarmed struggle to armed struggle, only in case the U.S. imperialist aggression makes it necessary to defend the Bolivarian Revolution. President Maduro also emphasized that this position is a response to the continuous threats and illegal sanctions and aggressions promoted by Washington, which seeks to undermine the political and economic stability of the country. In this sense, Maduro reaffirmed the commitment of the Venezuelan people to dignity, independence, and the sovereign development, and the importance of work for global peace. President Maduro also announced an action plan to consolidate popular power and defend national sovereignty against military threats from the United States. During the Extraordinary Congress of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, PSUV, President Nicolás Maduro announced action plans to consolidate popular power, prepare the country for a possible armed struggle, and defend the national sovereignty against military threats from the United States, and called for the activation of the 260,000 territorial structures for the defense of the nation. In this regard, he proposed three central tasks: resolving the problems of the people without halting government administration, strengthening popular power and the communes, and preparing to move from non-armed forms of struggle to armed struggle if necessary, underscoring the historical responsibility of defending Venezuela's dignity.
Going back is not an option for us.
So in the first place, the three central tasks of the moment. The first one, to consolidate the capacity of the government capacity to resolve, pay attention, and channel the problems of the people in a direct way with the national plan of the 7 T's, putting the third T at the front. We are going out to ask for the vote, and we told them we're people that solve. Well, people who solve is the first point. How to make our word count and go out and figure things out with the people.
In this sense, the Venezuelan president announced the third task of the PSUV, which consists of being prepared to defend the country against any aggression.
And the third task is precisely that the Socialist Party of Venezuela, as a ruling party, as the one that unites the political forces and cultural forces of this historical bloc, that it prepare and adapt in an accelerated manner in order to move from the non-armed struggle forms to the armed struggle forms if Venezuela continues to be threatened by U.S. imperialism without hesitation. To doubt is to commit treason without hesitation. As Bolívar put it,
For his part, the party's Vice President Diosdado Cabello accused Washington of trying to seize the country's rich natural and strategic resources behind the justification of a fight against drug trafficking. Cabello also assured that the Bolivarian nation is willing to defend its freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination, and affirmed that the objective of imperialism is to destroy the Bolivarian Revolution. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez also participated in the plenary and highlighted the efforts of the Venezuelan people to defend the national territory. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, authorities released a video showing the alleged suspect in the murder of Charlie Kirk at an event at the campus of Utah Valley University. The images show an individual running across the roof of a building and jumping into the ground of one side of the building. With this action, he left fingerprints at the scene, according to the authorities. The Federal Bureau of Intelligence gathered over 7,000 pieces of evidence on the suspect and, together with local law enforcement agencies, conducted more than 200 interrogations. Police indicate that the shooting was a targeted attack and presume that the attacker fired from the roof of a building. In other news, in Panama, citizens rejected mining reopening while denouncing conflicts of interest between the current government and the company First Quantum. Panamanians gathered to denounce the attempts by José Raúl Molino's government to violate the two rulings of the unconstitutionality against the mining company First Quantum following attempts to reopen the mega copper mine. Citizens denounced that the most serious damage from the activity would be to water sources, since it rains a lot in Panama and soil erosion is high, making aquifers highly vulnerable to contamination. They also point out conflicts of interest between officials of the current and previous administrations and the company, which compromised Molino's decision to reopen the mine. Meanwhile, in Ecuador, social movements took to the streets to protest against the policies and bills promoted by President Daniel Noboa. Various social organizations organized a national march to show that they are against privatizing strategic state assets and undermining labor rights. The protesters demand the repeal of the Public-Private Partnership Law and the Public Expenditure Rationalization Law, as these initiatives are a cover for privatizing vital sectors. The day of action shows that the Ecuadorian people are organized and alert, ready to defend their sovereignty and their achievements. The crossbow the message is clear. They will not allow the rights to be rolled back by the neoliberal actions of the head of state. On its end, Ecuadorian security forces cracked down on protests against the neoliberal policies and destabilization of Daniel Noboa's government. While demanding the president's resignation, protesters marched toward the center of Quito, where they were attacked by police, leading to violent clashes. According to witnesses, the police used sound bombs and tear gas to disperse the protests, while using their shields against the citizens. The protesters continued their demonstrations and blamed the president for the growing insecurity plaguing the country, in addition to the electricity crisis and economic recession. Now we go to Brazil, where Supreme Court has sentenced former President Jair Bolsonaro to 27 years and 3 months in prison for plotting a military coup. The third and decisive vote was cast by Justice Carmen Lucia Antunes, who found the former president guilty of seeking to forcibly cling to power after losing the 2022 election. On Tuesday, 2 other justices, Alexandra Moraes and Flavia Dino, also declared the 70-year-old politician guilty of leading what Moraes called a criminal organization that had sought to plunge the South American country back into dictatorship. In this context, Brazilians on the streets have welcomed the Supreme Court votes against former President Jair Bolsonaro.
I think he has to pay for his crimes. He's a racist and he's good for nothing. They have to lock him up and throw the key in the river because that guy is good for nothing. He said poor people should eat grass. He didn't help us with anything. He didn't keep his promises. That's it. I hope he rots in there.
It's a fair decision. It proves that democracy exists and that there are laws in Brazil. So if he did something wrong, he has to pay for it.
Earlier on Thursday, Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Carmen Lucia Antunes asserted that since 2021, conditions had been created to undermine the country's democratic rule of law.
Since 2021, beyond the global pandemic of the COVID-19, new social and political conflicts have emerged in these lands based on strategies and practices aimed at achieving illegitimate goals, which is exactly what was denounced. These practices threatened or attempted to abolish the democratic rule of law and constituted an attempted coup d'état.
In this way, the Supreme Court Justice of Brazil confirmed that there was evidence of a plan led by former President Jair Bolsonaro to attack Brazil's democratic institutions.
And I already anticipate that there is conclusive evidence that a group led by Jair Bolsonaro, composed of key figures from the government, armed forces, and intelligence agents, developed and implemented a systematic plan to attack democratic institutions in order to obstruct the legitimate transfer of power after the 2022 elections and to undermine the free exercise of other constitutional powers, especially from the judicial branch.
Meanwhile, in Argentina, workers at the Garrahan Children's Hospital, belonging to the Association of Professionals and Technicians, call a 24-hour strike in protest against the presidential veto of the pediatric emergency law. The association announced that the strike will begin this Friday, September 12th, and will include the suspension of all activities at the Garrahan Hospital, except for the inpatient and emergency areas. In addition, this Thursday, the union will hold a meeting to agree on the steps to be taken and propose for next Monday the holding of a press conference by all sectors that support the cause of Garrahan, public health, and the university. And now we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break coming, don't go away. Welcome back. In France, the political party de France Insoumise received 104 votes from members of parliament for its motion to impeach President Emmanuel Macron. The initiative, reintroduced on September 9th in the National Assembly, is based on Article 68 of the Constitution, which establishes the exceptional mechanism for serious breaches. Its success depends on the post-election fragmentation of 2024, which left Parliament without a clear majority. The most recent government crisis led to the resignation of former Prime Minister François Bayrou after 364 votes against a motion of confidence. This dismissal by motion of confidence, the first since 1962, forced Macron to appoint Sébastien Lecornu as the new Prime Minister, although he is already facing a motion of censure. In other news, in Nepal, after 2 days of violent anti-government protests, the army lifted curfew after military seeks to restore order. In this scenario, the army took control of Kathmandu and patrolled the streets, while representatives of the protesters engaged in dialogue with military officials. Following a virtual meeting attended by over 300 protest movement participants, the proposal to appoint the popular former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as the leader of the interim government was upheld. The protest, which left nearly 30 people dead and over 1,000 injured, led to the resignation of Prime Minister Sharma Oli. Israel has delayed negotiations for the release of hostages in the Gaza Strip, following the attack in Doha, the capital of Qatar, against the leaders of the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas. Both the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas and Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman have condemned the attack, declaring that Netanyahu has destroyed any hope of negotiations to secure the release of the hostages. Meanwhile, Qatar is expected to host an emergency Islamic Arab summit on Sunday and Monday of next week to address the repercussions of the attack in the capital Doha. The nation has also announced that it will take the necessary legal measures in response to the Israeli attack on its territory. Precisely, the funeral for the victims of the Israeli attack on Doha was held on the Qatari city on Thursday. The service that took place in the main state mosque was attended by hundreds of Qataris, including officials, among them the nation's ruling emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The bodies of the 6 victims of the Zionist strike were carried into the mosque covered with Palestinian and Qatari flags. In this context, the Interior Ministry of Qatar informed that after the funeral, the victims would be buried in the Mesa Emir cemetery. For its part, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas condemned the Israeli strikes on Doha, stating they were an assassination of the entire negotiation process.
This crime was not merely an assassination attempt on the delegation, but an assassination of the entire negotiation process, and a deliberate targeting of the brotherly intermediary nations, Qatar and Egypt. We affirm that the U.S. is fully complicit in this crime, bearing political and moral responsibility for providing cover and continuous support for the occupation's aggression and ongoing crimes against our people.
Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, a mural by the artist Banksy was removed from the facade of the Royal Courts of London, which depicted a judge striking an unarmed protester. The work, which symbolizes unconstitutional violence and judicial repression, was quickly covered up and later removed, which led to accusations of censorship, especially in the context of the recent ban on the activist group Palestine Action. Bansky's intervention, renowned for its political and social criticism, became a catalyst for debate on freedom of expression and the limits of protest in the United Kingdom. Despite its rapid removal, the mural left a significant message, questioning power structures and social injustice. In Australia, a regulator has approved a world-first vaccine to protect koalas from chlamydia, which causes infertility and death in endangered koalas. The single-dose vaccine was developed by the University of the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, after more than a decade of research led by Professor of Microbiology Peter Timms. The research showed that the vaccine reduced the likelihood of koalas developing symptoms of chlamydia during breeding age and decreased mortality from the disease in wild populations by at least 65%. The recent approval by Australia's veterinary medicine regulator means the vaccine can now be used in wildlife hospitals, veterinary clinics, and in the field to protect the nation's most at-risk koalas.
This is a really exciting day. Obviously, chlamydia is a major disease and threat for koalas, and today we've got a new tool, I think, a new management tool that we can use to hopefully reduce the levels of chlamydial disease affecting populations. Queensland and New South Wales, 50% of most populations in those two states have got infection levels and disease levels, and so whether it's through wildlife hospitals, there's definitely an opportunity in wildlife hospitals, in populations that are under threat and the numbers are decreasing, or populations where we as humans are destroying their habitats. So they'll be the areas, first of all, that will need to make the vaccine available.
Moreover, Dr. Julian Grossmayer, a senior veterinarian at the Endeavour Veterinary Ecology Project, committed to protecting koalas, highlights the effects of chlamydia in koalas.
Really nasty to koalas. It can make them blind through conjunctivitis and pink eye, essentially. It can make them infertile, where they can't breed anymore. And in some cases, they just get so sick from it that they become emaciated and die. So it can be it is very confronting to see them come through the clinic, and we welcome any new solutions that we can have for managing them.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Sophie Fernandez. Thank you for watching.